Hey, guess what? They approved the FISA bill in bipartisan vote. So what is the FISA bill? The FISA bill is there to spy on you. So your government, again, is the enemy of you. They're not there to help you. They're there to spy on you. And here's exactly what Edward Snowden says about it. The White House is calling the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution a threat to national security. This is a real memo sent out today. The yellow highlighted sections just translate euphemism, the Biggs Amendment, to plain language. Biggs warrant requirement. Source below. So they sent this out to get people to go along with this goofy law. And here it is, the warrant. So now they don't need a warrant to spy on you. There was people trying to push that the government has to get a warrant to spy on you. And here's what so this was the administration, Joe Biden's administration, sent this out to Congress to influence their votes. And here's what it says. The warrant requirement is a threat to national security. The Constitution's Fourth Amendment would eviscerate the value of Section 702. They're saying that the Fourth Amendment, the Constitution, is your enemy. That's what the Joe Biden administration is saying. Requiring a warrant would impose dangerous limits on the ability to review critical intelligence on key threats, including terrorist threats to the homeland, fentanyl supply chain. See, we can't keep you safe. That's what every dictator says. I'm only taking your rights away to keep you safe. I'm only taking away free speech because they're saying crazy things. We're only spying on people because they're doing bad things and dangerous things like fentanyl and terrorism. Well, what's the point of having a Fourth Amendment to the Constitution if you don't follow it? If you only follow it when it's easy, then as Jon Stewart once said, then it's not a value, it's just a hobby.
Right.
This is real. The Constitution bars the U.S. officials from querying lawfully collected Section 702 data to find communications of an American, except in extraordinarily limited and unworkable exceptions. Yeah, that's why you have a Constitution. Down here, under the warrant requirement, the FBI would have been unable to gain access to the critical information necessary to take these actions in time to protect. So we can't protect the country if we follow the Constitution. That's what they're saying. So do you know that so here it is. The House, in a bipartisan vote, reauthorized the nation's warrantless surveillance powers Friday. Warrantless surveillance on who? You. Approving the program for another 2 years, even as lawmakers narrowly declined to attach an amendment that would require a warrant for some searches. So do you know the expression, the devil's in the details? Well, here it is. Exactly as described, going after the Constitution. This is, honest. We got to always remember, by the way, the chamber cleared the bill, which will extend and reform Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act in a 273 to 147 vote. Congress is staring down an April 19 deadline to reauthorize the spying powers. Consideration of the FISA legislation made for dramatic scenes on the House floor Friday. Just remember that we are dealing with psychotic pedophiles who have been found out and are tripping over each other, coming up with schemes and lies and tactics to get around us, all organizing to realize what exactly is going on. So if you think they're just going to use this to fight fentanyl, or they're just going to use this to fight terrorism, look what they're doing to Julian Assange. Look what they're doing to Edward Snowden. Look what they're doing to anybody who tells. Look what they're doing to Stop Cop City. Look what they're doing to everybody in the Trump administration. They're going to do it to everybody. And if you ever are a threat to the establishment, or you point out something that they're doing, they're going to call you a terrorist. They're going to spy on you. That's what this is all about. Minutes before final passage, the chamber voted down an amendment 2012 to 2012 that would have added a warrant requirement for Americans' data swept up in foreign surveillance. There's now they don't have to get a warrant to spy on you. I like how they put it, swept up. Oh, did your data get swept up? You mean, did the government spy on you and get your personal information? In a house, a tie loses, so that's a loss. That's a loss for them. There's a drone with your name on it. You just don't know it yet. That amendment, led by Representative Andy Biggs of Arizona, has emerged as the central disagreement in the FISA debate, pitting privacy hawks on the Judiciary Committee. I like how they call it privacy hawks.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a privacy hawk, this guy who follows the Constitution.
There is this really crazy sect in Congress that actually wants to uphold the law.
Yeah.
Cuckoo
They're
birds.
cuckoo hawks.
You know, right now Michael Douglas is doing this Benjamin Franklin movie, and
yes,
and one of his most famous statements was, "He who would sacrifice a little liberty for a little security will gain neither and lose both."
Yes,
I am very curious if they're gonna dwell on that in that show. I would imagine not. I would imagine you will never hear that quote.
So I bet you won't. I bet that's well. Now I want to see the movie.
Now I'm very curious if they examine that.
Passage of the FISA legislation marks a win for Speaker Mike Johnson. Remember, he had such high hopes for Mike Johnson, who had struggled for months to facilitate compromise among two warring factions of the controversial topic of reauthorizing the U.S. warrantless surveillance program. Those disagreements led to a short-term extension in December, caused Johnson to scrap plans to vote on a reform bill in February, and prompted 19 Republicans to tank a procedural vote for a reauthorization measure Wednesday, hours after former President Trump urged lawmakers to kill FISA. So, by the way, the FISA court, they have the thing called the FISA court. So the FISA court is just a judge, or maybe it's 3 judges. And the FBI, if they want to get a warrant on you, you don't get to present a defense. They just go in and they present all this evidence to the FISA court saying, look, this guy's a bad person and we need to get a warrant on him, or we need to be able to spy on him with it. And they go, okay. So, turns out the FBI lied to the FISA court 17 times that we know of.
Right.
To get warrants on Donald Trump's campaign and his administration, and they did it. 17 times they lied. And you don't get to present a defense at a FISA court. It's a completely extrajudicial proceeding.
It's a star chamber.
It's just a rubber stamp that the intelligence community gets to spy on you whenever they want. And they give it, oh, well, it got okayed by the FISA court. So that's why Trump says kill FISA. He said that on True Social, dealing an embarrassing blow to the speaker. After the 11th hour negotiations between the GOP holdouts and leadership on Thursday, Johnson agreed to change the FISA reauthorization from 5 years to 2 and keep a vote on the warrant requirement amendment and hold a vote in the near future on a separate data privacy bill, which was enough to get the hardliners to agree to open the legislation up for debate. Well, there you go. So you don't need warrants anymore in America. That's because we are slowly becoming Palestine. They just can't barge in.
Well, that's what Chris Hedges always says. What they do overseas is a test run for what they're going to eventually do to you.
That's right. Whatever we do to those people overseas, we're eventually going to do it back here, which is why the police are all militarized and they look like soldiers in Iraq.
Right.
Section 702 of FISA allows for the warrantless surveillance of non-citizens located abroad. But the communications they receive from Americans they are in contact with are also swept up. They keep saying this, swept up in the process. The issue has united some Republicans and Democrats who argue the government should need a warrant to review any information collected on Americans as a result of foreign surveillance. The underlying bill has got some changes and reforms that are positive, that are good, but short of having this warrant amendment added to the legislation, we shouldn't pass it. Who said that? Jim Jordan.
Right.
This amendment is critical. Well, they did. Here it is. It's not complicated. Here's what he said.
The Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board, created by the 9/11 Commission Act of 2007, says that our amendment is consistent with what should happen. Our amendment is consistent with the majority recommendation of that board. This was a board specifically created to protect Americans' liberties, looking at how the intelligence community operates by the 9/11 Commission Act of 2007. And they say this amendment, the majority of that board said this amendment is what needs to happen.
So, but others aligned with the intelligence community and the White House argued the move would gut the bill. Really? Binding law enforcement to information that requires immediate real-time review. In a statement Thursday night, the White House said it strongly opposes the amendment to make sure you have to get a warrant. And they argued it would rebuild a wall around and thus block our access to already lawfully collected information in the possession of the U.S. government. The failure of the Warrant Amendment is a blow to privacy hawks. Again, they keep saying privacy hawks. This people who like the Constitution.
Yeah, well, that's the subtle way they brainwash people.
Yeah, that's how to make fascism look like populism 101.
That's it. That's why when you talk to libs, they live in a parallel universe because they're constantly getting overtly and covertly programmed to accept this framing.
And of course, Mike Johnson says this is a reform bill. So he says it's a reform bill. That's a message that was unconvincing to many of his colleagues who have railed against the agency. The FBI last year was found to have improperly used the FISA database 278,000 times.
Wow.
So they're looking up information on American citizens 278,000 times illegally. But the number of queries has dropped dramatically since the agency made shifts to the search portal that opted agents into search. Okay, it dropped to 119,000 only.
Oh,
only 119,000.
Okay. All right, I feel better.
The bill includes provisions that deal with the separate portion of the FISA statute that covers domestic surveillance. Updates to the law designed to address the FBI spying on Trump campaign aide Carter Page. FISA already requires law enforcement to get a warrant to spy on U.S. citizens. But the bill would bar political opposition and media reports from being used as the basis for applying for a warrant, tackling two issues underlying the warrant for Carter Page. Glen Greenwald, here's what he said. He said, here's the House roll call on whether to impose a warrant requirement on domestic spying. Yes, the Constitution does that. The vote was 212 to 212. Speaker Johnson, despite years of claiming he favored warrants, cast the decisive no vote.
Oh, wow.
There it is. Let's see. How many Republicans? Republicans, yes. 86 no's. Democrats, 84 yes. 126 no's. Independents, nobody. So there you go. 212 to 212.
So once again here, so the Republicans were more in favor of it than
free
the Democrats.
Speech, yes.
So who?
That's supposed to be a lefty thing,
right? And people argue, oh, the Democrats, you have to support them. They're defending
democracy.
Democracy. Not only that, claiming that they're defending the norms and guardrails.
Yes.
They're not even doing that. These are the fucking norms and guardrails. Protecting freedom of speech, protecting you from warrantless spying and investigation. That what could be more core to our guardrails than that?
Glen Greenwald says among the Dems voting no on the warrant requirement, giving the U.S. security state what it wants: Adam Schiff, Pelosi, Clyburn, Wasserman Schultz, Ted Lieu, Dan Goldman, Raskin, Thompson, the January 6th crew.
Yep. Well, that's like a rogues gallery, and if you remember Pelosi, this is how you know they were always full of shit about Russiagate and the idea of Trump being compromised.
Yes,
Pelosi voted to expand Trump's spying powers.
That's
while
right.
he was in office.
While he was in office.
Why would you do that if you believed he was compromised by a foreign power?
Yep.
Never would you do. They always knew it was bullshit.
Here's the Republicans who are against having the government get a warrant to spy on you. Crenshaw, really? That's the eye patch guy, right?
The eye patch guy. He's a pirate.
Lawler, Stefanik, McCall, Turner, Gallagher. Okay. I have not seen the U.S. security state or war machine not get what it wants in Washington, said Glen Greenwald. In the face of mass abuse of surveillance power, they just got renewed warrantless spying power on Americans. They now have Mike Johnson working to get them the $60 billion to send to Ukraine. Someone really needs to do a study on the speed with which they turned out Mike Johnson, just instantly converting him into a completely different human being after just a few months of being made speaker. You almost have to find it impressive. So when he talks about them, he's talking about the intelligence community, how they got Mike Johnson to just flip and completely go along with them and against the American people. Kind of like Bernie Sanders.
Well, my question now is Marjorie Taylor Greene and company going to make good on their promise to whack him? Are they going to get rid of him like they did McCarthy?
I hope so.
I hope so.
Come see us on tour. We're going to be in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, Cortland, New York, Oakmont, Pennsylvania, El Paso, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, Vancouver, British Columbia. First show sold out. Denver, Colorado, Ashland, Virginia, Athens, Georgia, and Minneapolis. We're coming back to Minneapolis. If you couldn't get tickets last time, there'll be some available this time. We're doing 2 shows. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.